Well, g'day, and welcome back again to Jiaoqing. And today you find us, we're up here by the river. We're actually walking down to the supermarket, but we're coming this way along the river, sort of a slightly longer route to get there, because this way we don't have to go past Baifeng Square, where all the beer festival stuff is happening, and it's probably again really crowded. We're just trying to avoid the worst of the crowds if we can. As we walk down there, we're going to talk a little bit. Actually, we're going to talk quite a bit because that's what I do. We're going to talk about the recently released report on human rights violations in the United States. A report released, I believe it's released every year by China, as sort of a bit of a trolling move, I think. Although, having said that, you know, America likes to accuse a lot of other places of doing human rights abuses. It's time that the mirror was turned around onto them a little bit, and let's see whether they actually live by the standards they impose on others. So this is thanks to Andy from the channel Reports on China. He did a video on this and sort of hit all the highlights. I'm actually going to read through the whole report and we'll talk about it as we go along. Just before we get into that, a couple of things that are going on. I thought we'd mention at the beginning of the video this time, because I always mention at the end, and a lot of people are probably tuned out by the time they get through an hour of me waffling on. Facebook, A Scot in China. Come and join the community. We share all sorts of things, whatever sort of stuff we find on Facebook about China, we'll share it there, give you a look at stuff. And the other one, we've got hopefully an interesting interview coming up with somebody who lives here in Jiaoqing. I'm not going to say who it is yet. We'll sort of let you know when it happens. But somebody who there is every chance is going to become quite a well-known international sporting figure in a few years' time. Someone who's already making waves on the international circuit as a young 12-year-old, and she lives here in Jiaoqing. So hopefully, I'm chatting to her dad at the moment. Hopefully we're going to get a chance to sit down with her and her father, have a chat about what this person's doing. So yeah, get yourself subscribed. One of the things I want to start doing in the future is chatting to more local people, and sort of not rely just on giving you my thoughts on what I see here in China, but actually talking to some of the locals, get some ideas of what people who live here and are Chinese think about what's going on in China. So yeah, get subscribed to that. Hopefully we're going to sit down with this person next week and have a chat. We'll see how we go. But yeah, we're talking. Hopefully it'll happen. But we have this report come out from, I don't even know which agency it is. We might find out as we read through here. But basically from China on the human rights abuses in America. This is called the Report on Human Rights Violations in the United States in 2024. So we are going to we're going to have a read through this, talk about what it says. Hopefully we're not going to get rained on. There is, I can see just over here behind us, we can actually see where are we? About here, a rain shower falling down behind the mountain. So hopefully we get to the shopping centre before that hits us here. We'll see how we go. So I will link the link to the text down below in the description so that you can open it up and follow along as we go. Oh wow, we got a little automatic vehicle there running down the road. Don't know what that one is. No, I'm not even going to guess. I didn't get enough of a look at it to see what type of thing it might be doing. So here we go, let's go. So Beijing, August 17, the State Council Information Office of the People's Republic of China on Sunday released a report on human rights violations in the United States in 2024. The following is an abstract of the report. The full text is in the attached file. Ooh, I wonder if maybe I should be reading the full text. No, we'll stick with this for now. I will go and have a look at the rest and maybe we'll expand further in the future because, yeah, I like this idea quite a bit. So, abstract. 2024 was an election year in the United States. Was a year of special concern that featured aggravating political strife and social division. Such a landscape offers an opportunity to review the state of human rights in the country in an intensive manner. Yeah, it's one of the things that just the division between people because of their politics is a bit sad, really. Why can't people just agree to disagree and get on? I don't understand how people get so passionate about things that the people they're voting for don't really care about. Okay, next paragraph. Money controls US politics with partisan interests above voter rights. The total spending for the 2024 US election cycle exceeded $15.9 billion US dollars. Wow, that's a lot of money, isn't it? Once again, setting a new record for the high cost of American political campaigns. Interest groups operating in the grey area beyond the effective reach of current US campaign laws use money to wantonly manipulate the fundamental logic and actual functioning of US politics. The Republican and Democratic parties manipulate electoral districts in highly distorted ways to choose their voters while meticulously designing voter compositions that favour their own chances of winning. So yeah, money in politics, I've always said for a long, long time, for all the problems in America, and there's plenty of problems in America, you know, there's, as with any country, you know, I'm not saying that America's worse than any other country, but America has its own problems. But until they fix things so that politicians aren't just being bought, nothing's going to change. The first thing in my mind that needs to change in America is their electoral system and getting rid of the big money. Because all the in any other country, what happens in America would be called corruption. The only reason it's not called corruption in America is because they made it legal. Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that take away the legal definition of what corruption actually is and just focus on the actual act, America is the most corrupt country in the world. You know, how much did they say? $15.9 billion to politicians for a year, for one election campaign. Just mind-boggling. And the manipulating electoral districts is, again, for me, America really should have the same as what Australia has, which is, you know, in Australia we have the Australian Electoral Commission. They are an independent body. They run the elections. They designate the districts. everything is done independently. The parties do not control this stuff. In America, the parties get to do it. So we see in Texas at the moment, they are trying to redistribute the areas so that, you know, the voter maps, so that they can pick up more seats. You know, it's highly, highly immoral as far as I'm concerned. Okay, let's move on. The US Supreme Court, in a 6-3 decision, overturned a lower court ruling that had found a redistricting plan suppressed the voting rights of African American voters, effectively endorsing political actions that suppress voter participation. The Supreme Court decision, in fact, backed political action that suppressed voters. 24 states have passed voter suppression laws, while 17 states have passed new or stricter voter ID laws. As a result, large groups such as the elderly, minorities, people with disabilities, low-income voters, and students face limited or deprived opportunities to exercise their right to vote. Yeah, they're having to show identification to vote. I'm a bit torn on that. Part of me says, you know, you're voting for your government. Yes, you should have to vote. You should have to show identification, show that you are legally allowed to vote. It also stops people voting in other people's names and stuff like that. But we don't in Australia. You go in, you get your name ticked off the roll, and you go and vote. I don't think I've ever had to show ID to vote. Just wish we could trust people to do the right thing. It would be nice, wouldn't it? But maybe that's a dream that's just not on. But the restrictions on voters and stuff, you know, if you've got very limited finances, which there's plenty of people living in poverty in America, if you've got limited finances, you might not have a driving license or any other kind of ID. If they're going to make you have to show ID, then to my mind it has to be ID that is available to everybody. Maybe they need to issue for everybody who enrolls on a voter list. Maybe they need to supply them with an ID card, you know, a voter ID card, so that people can just show that free of charge. However many billions of dollars they spent, I'm sure they could cough up for that and help people out. Right, let's carry on. Extreme incidents of political violence occurred frequently, with the public deeply disillusioned with American-style democracy. The prolonged partisan gridlock fueled a culture of political obstruction, often leading to political violence against individuals. During the 2024 election, both the Democratic and Republican presidential candidates and their teams faced varying degrees of political violence. Threats of violence become the new normal for politicians. Nearly half of voters expressed skepticism about the effectiveness of the US political system, with 62% believing the government primarily served the elite rather than ordinary citizens. A vast majority of voters believe the United States was on the wrong track, and nearly 80% said the election had not made them proud of their country. Yeah, can't agree. I mean, the partisan politics thing, the people, it's one thing I've often said, and I don't know if this is accurate, but when you hear Americans interviewed, often one of the first things you hear about them is, oh, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat. I don't really remember people in Australia ever identifying themselves that way. They might identify themselves, say, I voted Liberal this time, or I voted Labor this time, but they don't really identify in such a strong way with a party. It's really weird. And the political violence, I mean, yeah, that speaks for itself, really. There's not much more that I have to say about that. It's pretty disgusting. Nearly half of the voters expressed skepticism about the effectiveness of the US political system. Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think a big problem that American politics has is the way they elect their president, which on the surface, I love the idea, you know, we don't directly elect our Prime Minister in Australia. We elect the party elects the Prime Minister, which means if the party decide they don't like the Prime Minister anymore, as we saw with Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard, Tony Abbott, who was the other Liberal politician that got dumped, I can't remember his name, but another one. You know, if the party decide to change their mind, they can just change leaders without the consent of the people, which is, I think, rather wrong. But I also think it's better than the system we have in America, where the people elect the president and then they elect the Congress and the Senate. So you can have a president, as we've seen many times, from one party, but the House and the Senate are the other party. So nothing can be achieved. In Australia, at least, the leader of the party is a member of the party that holds power, so that things can actually get done. It's not just a stalemate on and on and on. We have the midterm elections coming up in America, I think fairly soon. And, you know, the way things are looking from what I understand of the polling, the Democrats are going to get control of the House, which means, again, they'll put things forward. Trump, being Republican, will just veto them, or Trump will try to put things forward and the House will just veto it. So, you know, nothing will get done. We saw the same with Obama. We saw the same with Bush. We saw the same with Clinton. It's just an ongoing thing. It's, yeah, it's ridiculous. The way things work there is just crazy. Right, let's move on. Skyrocketing inflation exacerbated the wealth gap, delivering catastrophic blows to low and middle income families. Economic and social inequalities in the United States worsened, with the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. Fairly common story. Over 40 million Americans lived in poverty, and 13.5% of US households faced food insecurity, and 13.8 million children lived in families that did not have enough food. Educational inequality perpetuated intergenerational poverty, creating a vicious cycle. Many ordinary Americans saw higher debts than ever. US credit card debt totaled a record high of 1.14 trillion US dollars. That's incredible. In the second quarter of 2024. And loan delinquency rates rose to the highest levels in nearly a decade. More than 700,000 people were homeless, marking an 18.1% increase from 2023. Wow. The largest rise since records began in 2007. Compounding the crisis, the Supreme Court ruled in July 2024 to allow fines, arrests, or imprisonment against homeless individuals sleeping outdoors. Well, that, fining somebody because they can't afford a house or aren't in a position to be able to secure a house to live in, that is, that's just mind-blowing to me. And yeah, the poverty, you know, we've watched China over the last 10, 12 years with their poverty alleviation programs here. They've done an absolutely brilliant job. Maybe America And we're talking about America as a country, not the American people here. But maybe as a country, instead of spending your time criticizing China for things that are not even true, maybe you should be coming here and having a look at how things work in China, and maybe getting some ideas on how to help the citizens of America, because the American people deserve far, far better than they're getting. Yeah, levels of poverty like that, that's mind-blowing. It's in a country that's meant to be the richest in the world. It's very, very sad. Okay, let's carry on. Government-business collusion fueled substance abuse and drug crisis, while failed healthcare system triggers public anger. The root of America's drug abuse and opioid crisis lies in interest hijacking, government business collusion, and regulatory failure. Interest groups driven by profit have intensified their lobbying efforts and deceptively promoted the use of opioids. Overdoses have involved synthetic opioids and stimulants surged in the past few years. Opioids have become the narcotic of the American people. Cannabis retail sales exceeded 32 billion in 2024, and drug overdose claimed over 100,000 lives. The United States is the only high-income country that does not provide universal health care, and it has the lowest life expectancy among its peers. Healthcare costs are spiraling upwards, and insurance companies deal with policyholders through tactics such as delay, deny, and don't pay, causing large numbers of low and middle income patients to go bankrupt due to medical debt. Yeah, as far as I know, personal bankruptcies in America, the biggest cause is medical costs, and that is pretty sad. Right, what else did we? Where were we? Ah, shoot, we've lost our. Okay, so let's go through this paragraph bit by bit here. So the root of America's drug abuse and opioid crisis lies in interest hijacking, government business collusion and such. Currently America is blaming China, Canada, Mexico and whoever else for the opioid crisis they have. I think personally it's time America looked in at itself and had a look at why so many Americans want to do these drugs and fix the root of the problem. Yes, I believe China exports a lot of opioid stuff, and I can't remember the name of the drug, but a certain drug to America for medical use, which they're now getting blamed for, peddling drugs onto the American black market. Bullshit. They do the same, they send the same drugs to countries all over the world. No other country in the world has the same problem with opioid abuse that America has. So there's something different happening in America that's not happening in the rest of the world. Maybe America needs to look at what that is and why they are having this issue. And then they might be able to solve the problem. Quit blaming others. Cannabis retail sales exceeded 32 billion in 2024, and drug overdose claimed over 100,000 lives. I don't know why they've put those two things in one sentence, because to the best of my knowledge, nobody has ever overdosed from cannabis. I am actually of the belief that cannabis should be legal. I believe it is less harmful than alcohol, which we don't seem to have a problem with. And there's a lot of health uses for cannabis that really should be researched. Cannabis has been demonized for largely political reasons for, I think it was the 1920s it started, with a newspaper baron. We might talk about that in another video. But yeah, I'm a big advocate for cannabis use, especially medical marijuana. I don't know that the medical uses are completely settled yet. I think there's still things that need to be looked at, but at the same time, I think we do need to be looking at them. But the 100,000 lives of drug overdoses, that's just, again, America, you need to, instead of just blaming the gangs and stuff who are bringing drugs into your country. Why are they bringing those things into your country? Because there's a lot of money in it. Why is there a lot of money in it? Because so many of your people want to do it. Let's look at why they want to do it and try and solve the root of the problem, rather than just, you can lock up 1,000 drug dealers, there'll be another 1,000 on the street tomorrow because the money's too good. Okay, moving on. Gun violence threatened lives and police brutality persisted in total disregard for human lives. The death toll from gun violence remained high. Frequent mass shootings and school shootings have plagued the nation. In 2024, there were 503 mass shootings, wow, and 45 school shootings in the United States. More than 40,000 Americans were killed by gun violence, including over 1,400 children. The culture of violence in the United States is deeply ingrained in its law enforcement agencies due to overly lax accountability standards. The law enforcement agencies and the criminal justice system frequently harm civilians with little consequence. Just watching these lights up here for when we can cross the road. This culture of impunity further exacerbates police violence. US police officers use violence against at least 300,000 individuals annually, with approximately 100,000 sustaining injuries. In 2024 alone, police shootings claimed more than 1,300 lives. Yeah, the gun issue in America is something I have long rallied against. You need stronger gun things. The idea that you need a gun to protect yourself from other people who have guns, and those other people have bought those guns legally as well, is just a vicious cycle. It just means more and more. Oh, we need another gun. We need a gun in each room now, just in case we're in another room and we're not wearing our holster. It's just a vicious cycle. But at the same time, while I'm all for stronger gun laws, it's one of our Prime Minister John Howard back in his day, after the Port Arthur massacre in Tasmania, brought in really strong gun laws in Australia, and I didn't agree with much that John Howard advocated, but I was 100% behind him on that. The problem with America is guns are so widespread now, I don't even know that they could do anything about the gun problem. Well, they could, but it would take a long, long time. But then at the same time, if you don't start, you're never going to get there. I don't know what to do about that problem. What was it? 503 mass shootings. So a mass shooting, I believe, is when there are 4 or more people shot in one incident. That's just mind-blowing. 40,000 people in the year. What was it? 45 school shootings. No other country has that I know of. I've heard of maybe a couple of school shootings not in the United States in all of my life. it's just not something that other countries have to deal with. Again, I don't know where this comes from. I don't know why America has such a violent culture. Maybe it's because guns are so commonplace and are so easy to get. They're just not viewed in the same way that the rest of the world view them. I don't know. It's, it's very strange. Okay, let's have a look at our next issue here. Racist rhetoric runs rampant, with ethnic minorities subjected to persistent and widespread discrimination and exclusion. By exploiting racial divides, politicians covered up structural problems in society by instigating antagonism between rival groups. African Americans are 3 times more likely to be shot and killed by police than white Americans. Among all children sentenced to life without parole, wow, 61% are black. Nearly 80% of urban solid waste incinerators in the United States are located in African American, Hispanic and low-income communities. African Americans have a life expectancy nearly 5 years shorter than that of white Americans. The infant mortality rate more than twice as high, with a maternal mortality rate nearly 3 times greater. Wow. The American Indian boarding schools, which operate for nearly a century and a half, turned out to be hell, with the discovery of the deaths of more than 3,100 Native American children in them. Although Asians are the most educated segment of the American workforce, they are the least likely among all racial groups to ascend to leadership roles. About 2/3 of Chinese Americans, 68%, face at least one form of discrimination in an average month. Yeah, the racial issues in America are pretty bad. It's in no way unique to America. We have issues in Australia as well. These issues are widespread everywhere. But this report is talking about America. I remember watching a report we've got some work being done on the road just up here in front of us here, so it's a little bit noisy. I remember watching a story from, what's his name? English comedian in America, does Last Week Tonight, John Oliver. And he did a report on black Americans in the health system. And the things that were uncovered in that were rather unbelievable. Just the care given to individuals depending on their skin colour, the difference in the way they treated white people to black people, how quick they were to prescribe drugs and things. Oh, black people, they don't need painkillers as much because, I don't know, they can handle the pain better. They weren't believed how much pain they were in, so they just weren't given what they should have been given. It's pretty bad. Okay, carrying on. We'll keep moving through because I don't know how much more we got to go, but we're getting there. The absence of legal protection has led to widespread infringements of women's and children's rights. The United States has not ratified the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and the Convention on the Rights of the Child. A constitutional amendment to equal rights for men and women has not yet been passed. About 40% of working women have experienced sexual harassment during their careers. 11 states in the United States have a domestic violence rate of more than 40%. Over 5 million women live in areas without access to maternity care. Wow. Child marriage remains legal in the vast majority of states. What? The harmful practice of female genital mutilation remains widespread in the United States. The number of illegally employed child labourers has surged to the highest level in decades, while those in power have loosened restrictions, making it easier to exploit children. Among immigrant children, the number of illegal child labourers has reached its highest level since the early 20th century. So in 100 years, that's just incredible. Yeah, there's lots of issues regarding both women and children in America. The anti-abortion crowd. We have a basketball game going on over here. We have a little kids competition going on here. Kids playing their basketball. We're not going to hang around and watch that. We're off shopping. But yeah, the anti-abortion crowd seem to say they care about the rights of the child, but they only seem to care about those rights until that child is born. After that, you're on your own. They're taking away school lunches and things like that from kids. Taking away the SNAP, which I believe is something to do with feeding poor families, feeding poor kids, the SNAP program. If you're going to stop people being able to have an abortion, you need to provide for those kids that are born in less than ideal circumstances. Yes, it's ridiculous. And yeah, there's a lot of states now trying to broaden what sort of work you can get away with using children for. That is just wrong, and it's rather disgusting. Some of these parts, and we'll come back to that. Right, let's keep moving through. The humanitarian crisis for migrants in border areas continues to worsen, with migrants subjected to torture and inhumane treatment. Politicians exploit the issue of immigration to attack one another, or using stigmatizing narratives to attract attention and win votes. The number of migrant deaths in El Paso area alone, along the southern US border, surged from 72 in 2028 to 168 in 2024, with the youngest being only 1 year old. Woof. What do you say to that? A 1 year old. Unbelievable. Immigration detention facilities have protected and tolerated their staff becoming black prisons where torture is rampant. Hundreds of thousands of immigrant children go missing after entering the United States, with many of them possibly being lured into forced labour and sexual trafficking. Yeah, I've always had an issue with this particular issue. They're all being deemed as illegal immigrants, which I strongly disagree with. To my knowledge, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, to my knowledge, they can be called undocumented immigrants. They're illegal once they've been judged by the courts to be illegal, not before then. So, yeah, there's people who are going to court to try and get permanent residents in the United States, being arrested outside the court after their court hearing, and they've been allowed to continue with their hearing. They're not allowing people to go through the process, which is, to my knowledge, illegal, but nothing's being done about it. If you want to change the laws, China has very, very strict laws here. Whether or not I agree with them, I don't know, but they have a legal system which they follow. Whether you agree with it or not, like any laws, every law, there will be people who agree, people who don't agree. But for America, you have your own laws, you should be following those laws. If you don't like the laws, change them. And, you know, kids, hundreds of thousands of immigrant children go missing after entering the United States. Where are these kids? You know, is anybody actually looking for them? It's pretty bad. Power politics intensifies regional conflicts and causes humanitarian disasters. The US government has provided unwavering military and diplomatic support to Israel and exercised its veto power 7 times to block UN Security Council resolutions calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. The escalation of the pro-Israel-Palestine conflict resulted in over 100,000 casualties and displaced approximately 90% of Gaza's population. The United States is overwhelmingly the world's biggest user of unilateral sanctions. It has increasingly imposed them in recent years, negatively affecting the lives of billions across the globe. More than 60% of low-income countries are now under some form of financial penalty. Despite 32 consecutive resolutions passed overwhelmingly by the UN General Assembly, the United States persisted in maintaining its economic, commercial, and where are we? Maintaining its economic, commercial, and financial embargo against Cuba. The torture apparatus at the Guantanamo Bay prison continues to operate, employing methods that were nothing short of appalling. Yeah, these sanctions, a lot of their illegal, as they call it, immigrant problem in the US could be solved if the US weren't driving people out of their own countries and looking for somewhere better to live. You know, what do you expect people to do? Just stay there? Okay, last paragraph here. The tumultuous political stage of the United States in 2024 acts as a prism reflecting the structural dilemma of American-style human rights. As for the numerous human rights issues in the United States, politicians from both parties equivocated during election campaigns and dodged the question of how to earnestly fix the problems. Under the collusion of power and capital, human rights have been distorted into mere props in a political show and bargaining chips in a power casino, completely deviating from the core values and fundamental principles of human rights. Yeah, it's a pretty good report, really. I don't know that you can find much in there that's that's not true and accurate. But all of those issues, every single issue, I'm pretty confident you can trace back to one root cause, and that is, as I said, I think it was the first paragraph we read, money in politics is the root. You know, like they say, money is the root of all evil. Well, the amount of money in United States politics is the root of everything that's wrong in the US at the moment. Yeah, America could and should be a highly prosperous country. Its people should be doing very, very well. Yeah, we see the middle class in China has grown hugely over the last few years. Pretty much every person in China has lifted their standard of living. You know, maybe going from middle class to upper class, or from lower class to middle class, or working class to whatever. In America, it seems to be going the other way. It's going backwards. It's going the wrong way. To the American people, vote out these bastards who take money from outside, who get paid to ignore your interests, whether it's Republican or Democrat. I don't care which side. I respect the politicians who take small dollar donations only. People like Bernie Sanders, AOC, you know, I'll respect them because of the way, I might not agree with all of their policy things, but I will respect them in that their policy ideas are their own and they're coming from the people that they are trying to win the support of. On the Republican side, Matt Gaetz was one, a thoroughly disgusting human being from what I understand. He's had some serious issues with his personal life, let's say. But he was another one. He only took small dollar donations, and for that I'll respect him. A lot of other things I won't respect about him, but at least he was doing what he thought his constituents actually wanted, not what the big donors wanted. Yeah, it all comes back down to money. It all comes back down to getting that money out of politicians' hands. Most politicians seem to go into politics as fairly ordinary people, come out of politics being very, very rich. How does that happen? They're only paid, what, a couple $100,000 a year? They shouldn't be becoming multi-millionaires after 5 years working for the government. That just shouldn't be happening. But, you know, it's up to you guys. Americans, you have to decide what you want, and you have to vote the right people in. If you're going to keep voting for these bozos, it gets harder and harder to have sympathy for you as a country for all of these issues. And you know, this is touching on some of the issues. You know, we haven't talked about the prison system in America, which I see as another huge big issue with privately operated prisons. There's so many other issues going on in America. We might actually have to go and look at the full report and do a video talking more about this. But yeah, it's an interesting report. As I say, we'll link it down there in the description. Go away, have a read through it. I don't know if I would recommend the entire report yet. I haven't had a look at it myself yet, but I will. But chances are it's worth at least going and having a look at. Look for the link from the page here, and that'll send you there. But for now, we are almost at the shopping centre. We've got the beer festival right over the road. We're going to go grab some chicken, I think, to cook up for dinner tonight. I think we're going to do chicken tonight. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this, like, share, subscribe. Questions or comments down there in the comment section, as always. If you have anything you would like to know about life here in China, in Guangdong, especially here in Jiaqing, again, down there in the comment section. If you come up with a good idea, we'll go away, do some research, make a video for you. And as I said at the start, Scott in China on Facebook, come and join the community and get yourself subscribed. We are hoping to have a interview with this young lady here who hopefully in the future will be making a splash on the world stage. So I'm really looking forward to that. Like I say, I do want to start talking to some more locals, bringing some more content with the views of local people. So yeah, get yourself subscribed. There's lots of plans coming up. How long it takes to implement all my plans, who knows, but we'll get there. But for now, it's time to go shopping. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe, and we will see you all in the next one. Cheers.